call it moving day, and in a national motorsports series, the start of the second half of the season is no different. For those who have aspirations of fighting for the coveted title of 2023 SA Rally Raid Champions, it was time to make a move. Welcome to the quaint town of Parys, the one in the Free State, for round 4 of the 2023 SARRC. All the action is brought to you by Ford, Toyota and Parys. It's not quite the city of love, but like its French namesake, Parys also has a river running through it. But these guys and girls weren't here to admire the scenery of the Vaal River that marks the border between Gauteng and the Free State. South Africa's top racing drivers were here for the dirt and dust of the Free State flatlands, the perfect backdrop for an epic battle. And for 2023, the farmlands of Parys not only provided the backdrop for one battle, but over the course of the weekend, 2 full rounds of the 2023 SARRC would be contested here. Round 4 took place on the Friday of the event, with a full route consisting of 400 testing kilometers. This Saturday offered the same challenge with another full 400 kilometers in store to make up round 5. 2 days, 2 races and 2 bags of championship points. No wonder it was called Moving Day. Welcome to the Parys 400, the first of 2. Let's start the action with a good look at Class T1. These are the exact same cars that won the world-famous Dakar Rally as little as 3 years ago. It's also the class where a number of our best drivers are making their mark, and none more so than Mpumalanga man Eben Basson. After a full haul of points at the desert race in Botswana, the defending champion regained the Class T1 lead ahead of the hard-charging Johan de Bruyn and former biker Nick Pienaar. These were the standings going into round 4, with the name of Basson at the top, 20 points ahead of de Bruyn, with very little separating Pienaar and veteran Johan van Staden in 3rd and 4th respectively. De Bruyn knew that he had to throw caution to the wind.
Fast, flat out, and risk it all. We've had our bad luck for the season, I hope, and let's see where it takes us, but it's going to be fast and we're going to go hard.
Basson, on the other hand, was thinking of a more cautious approach.
I think try to keep it clean, number 1, and try to minimize the punctures. If I can get my punctures rating down, then obviously time will come automatically.
The plan was to squeeze 2 full races into as many days, and as each race consisted of a qualifying race and 2 racing loops, there was little time to be wasted. At exactly 7:30 on the Friday of the event, the flag was waved to signal the start of the Pirelli qualifying race. It would be a fast and furious affair on 22 kilometers of flat-out dirt roads to the south of Parys. As per usual, the Pirelli qualifier is a mad dash to the line in order to determine the starting positions for the main race. But on this day, the visiting European crews of Dave Klaassen and Tessa Ruth and Jürgen Schroeder and Stuart Gregory could only muster positions outside of the top 5. But the gaps were close on the fast 22-kilometer route. Veteran racer Johan van Staden and his son Sean set the 5th fastest time in their Renault Duster, just 18 seconds from the crew in 4th. They were none other than German driver Daniel Schroeder with Ryan Bland reading the notes in their Nissan Navara VK50. Just 1 single second separated Schroeder from the Pretoria-based crew of Johan de Bruyn and Gerard Skitter, whose redlined Revo T1 set the 3rd fastest time. As mentioned earlier, de Bruyn had his sights set on points leaders Eben Basson and Leander Pienaar, who managed to open their account with a slender 3-second advantage over the de Bruyn pairing in their Team Hilux Rally Raid Hilux. So a good start for Basson, but not as good as the young man and the woman who set the fastest time of all in Class T1. Pole position belonged to none other than youngster Jaden Els and Alvin Fonk in the King Price Extreme SVR, who pipped the rest by a margin of 8 seconds. Perfectly poised to spoil the Basson and de Bruyn party during the main race that was to come. Els takes the qualifying race win ahead of rivals Basson and de Bruyn, with Schroeder and van Staden rounding out the top 5. Qualifying, however, was only 22 kilometers long, The crews now had a taste of the dry and dusty dirt roads of Parys, and with nearly 400 kilometers still on the cards for the day, it was time to go racing. The fact that many international crews choose to make the journey to our shores is testament to the quality of the SARC. But crews like the Dutch pairing of Dave Klaassen and Tessa Ruth, and an old friend of South Africa, German Jürgen Schroeder, with Stuart Gregory doing navigating duties, clearly enjoy the outing. Klaassen completed the day in 6th, with the German Schroeder beating him by around 9 minutes for 5th. Johan van Staden and son Sean tried their best, as they always do. But on this occasion, the Renault Duster had to settle for a 4th place finish, around 7 minutes from a podium. That final podium spot belonged to yet another German with the name Schroeder. This time it was the younger Daniel and Navi Ryan Bland who raced their aging Navara VK50 to the final step of the podium, adding to the Germans' many trophies won on South African soil. By now it was easy to work out that there were still 3 crews in the hunt, but only 2 spots left, which meant that the first Parys 400 would turn into a nightmare for one of them. Unfortunately for pole sitters Els and Fonk, their hopes of winning disintegrated with the front differential of their car, forcing them to the sidelines for not only round 4, but for round 5 as well. So the anticipated fight between Basson and Pinot and De Bruyn and Skitter did indeed materialize. Well, sort of. Times were close between the Redline Motorsport River and the Team Hilux Rally Raid car early on. But Basson and Pinot slowly gained the upper hand to complete the day at the top of the standings with a victory margin of just over 2 minutes. A close result after a 400-kilometer fight, but one that Basson would have been happy to win.
But it's nice to give the big wheels a challenge, huh? But they're in a different lead. But anyway, we're happy to lead the T1 class, and we extended our championship.
The points that come with a class victory do indeed mean that the 2022 champions are one step closer to defending their title. But as was the case here in Parys, De Bruyn was and is still within striking distance. Schroeder claimed 3rd, while the names of Van Staden and Schroeder Sr. rounded out the top 5. And ultimately, on the day, this is what it is all about. The opportunity to stand on the podium and enjoy the bittersweet taste of success, with some steps on the podium offering more sweetness than others. Let's cast our attention to Class T, where 4 competitors have managed to score points so far in 2023. Hendrik Du Plessis topped the standings ahead of Bernard Johnston and Skalkberger. For round 4, the Class T fight was reduced to a 2-horse race between the championship leaders Hendrik and son Heinrich Du Plessis and the King Price Extreme Volkswagen Amarok of Skalkberger and Henk Janssen van Vieren. Unfortunately for both of these crews, the battle was decided early on when the Du Plessis pairing crashed their Ford Ranger during the qualifying race. They were unharmed, but removed from the action for the rest of the weekend, leaving the King Price Extreme crew of Berger and Janssen van Vieren to claim the win. Skalk has been around motorsport for a while and knows that the objective of rally raid racing is to be clean and not get out of the car. And that is exactly what he managed to do on the day.
It was tough, you know. You're sitting with that nerves finishing. You have to finish. First have to finish. You don't want to get out of the car with punctures, and we had a clean run, you know. It was nerve-wracking, but we did it. Yeah, thanks.
Next up, the lads in Class G of the SARC. These side-by-side machines offer highly competitive racing and deceptive pace at a more affordable price point when compared to the state-of-the-art Dakar machines that compete in the premier classes. The fact that no less than 3 different crews could be covered by a blanket was further proof of just how competitive Class G can be. In fact, we had a tie at the top between youngster Ian Morstead and new rival Glenn Turon, with the wily old dog Jeff Minott hot on their heels. The championship standings tell the full story. A tie at the top between the Morsteads and Glenn Turon on 82 points apiece, with Minott a mere 4 points adrift, making the 2023 Class G fight a tight affair to say the least. We caught up with Turon in the moments before the start of the race.
A very tight championship. Everybody's, really top of their game, and even though we might be the smaller class at G, the competition's tough.
When the flag dropped to signal the start of the race, the crews in Class G were embroiled in yet another tight battle as expected. The Pirelli qualifying race saw championship leader Glenn Turon, partnered with Craig Galvin in the Motonetics Racing Can-Am Maverick, go fastest of the bunch. The gap to Francois Neil de Wit, racing in a similar machine, was just 15 seconds for second place. While Jeff Minott and Rodney Burke brought their HPE Can-Am Maverick home in third place, a further 7 seconds adrift. With only 22 seconds separating the top three in Class G, a mighty battle was clearly on the cards. And here are the numbers. 15 seconds was the gap between Turon and de Wit in Turon's favour, with Minott just a further 7 seconds back. Ewald van Rensburg qualified in fourth, with the Mostert having it all to do after losing nearly 2 minutes in the short qualifying race. 400 kilometers in a side-by-side can be a long way where lots can go wrong. But at the same time, it also offers plenty of opportunities to try and win the race or make up some lost ground. In the end, the main event did shuffle the order somewhat, with Jeff Minott and Rodney Mumblesburg going fastest of the bunch. The Hydro-Power equipment pairing finished the day in a total time of 4 hours, 36 minutes and 52 seconds. More than 10 minutes clear of Ian and Vanna Mostert, who achieved the second spot on the podium in their Motonetics Racing Can-Am Maverick after fighting their way back up the leaderboard. Glenn Turon and Craig Galvin rounded out the podium, but were probably a little disappointed in not being able to convert their pole position into a race win. While the de Wits narrowly missed out on the third step, setting for fourth in the end. Ewald van Rensburg and Johan Schippers were the fifth and final Class G crew to complete the Parys 400. This is what a team would like to see, their names at the top of the standings at the end of a national rally raid race. And at the end of round 4, it was Minott and Burke who topped the standings, ahead of the Mosterts and title hopefuls Turon and Galvin. And this is what they like to taste, sweet bubbly from the victor's podium. We caught up with Minott and Burke at the end of the race, who were as graceful in victory as ever.
You know, a little bit of dust and the sun and the dryness and just the day and the racing was amazing. What a wonderful day, and it was beautiful to be out there and all the supporters and the sponsors, and just amazing time. And Rodney, my man, world class.
Bats, strikers, Zarkos. These are some of the names of some of the monstrous pieces of equipment you'll find in Class A of the special vehicle category of the SARRC. Massive open-wheel race cars with even bigger V8 engines that send all that power to only, albeit a massive set of rear wheels. This is also where you'll find talented drivers like defending champion Tim Howes and a true veteran and gentleman of the sport, John Thompson. After 3 rounds on the 2023 title fight, it was Howes with a 14-point lead over Thompson, with Loet du Preez rounding out the top 3. We had a quick chat with Howes, who had a conservative strategy in mind. Perhaps the right choice, considering he was also carrying an injury.
Get to the finish. That's always the first goal. And then if we do that and we do it neatly and tidily, then we'll get to the finish in a good position. Also had a little bit of an injury on the bicycle, so I've got an injured knee, but we're just going to take it easy and get to the finish.
3 of these Class A beasts took the starters' orders in Parys for the start of round 4. And perhaps the Howes injury did play a role early on, because for once the Italian crew of Howes and Gary Campbell were not the ones to set the pace. In fact, the defending champion nursed his leg home in the 3rd and final position following the qualifying race. They were beaten to the line by arch rivals John Thompson and Maurice Matten in their Zarko Challenger, but not by much. 9 seconds was all that separated these 2 crews, but they were beaten by the very rapid Alcia de Jager and Ricus Hutting in the aging Porter. De Jager raced through the qualifying race in a time of 11 minutes and 49 seconds, enough to claim pole position by a full 27 seconds. There's the qualifying race results for Class A, with De Jager topping the standings ahead of Thompson and Howes. The stage was set. How you finish a short qualifying race is important, but how you finish the real McCoy is more important. The qualifying order was somewhat shaken up during the race, however, when the champions showed their class to come back for a fighting win. Tim Howes and Gary Campbell in the Bat Spec 4 had to keep an eye on their small rear-view mirrors, as Alcia de Jager and Ricus Hutting gave a good account of themselves to finish less than 6 minutes adrift. John Thompson and Maurice Zermatten rounded out the Class A podium after an altercation en route with Haas. Let's hear what Haas had to say after the race.
It was great fun, and yeah, thanks to everyone who's involved, and thanks to my family for coming to come and join us this weekend.
There it is, the confirmation that Haas extended his championship points lead with a 5-minute victory over the Yaka. Thompson did make it back to claim the third and final podium spot. And finally, time to talk about the big boys of South African rally raid racing. The big boys in the big cars with the big wheels. Class T1+. This is where you'll find the South African champions and crews that have even made their mark at the world-famous Dakar Rally. Someone with Dakar aspirations is none other than Ford's Gareth Woolridge. The Italian is also in the overall points lead following his emphatic victory at the desert race in Botswana earlier this year. The man now has the target on his back.
Look, it's a first for me, but in saying that, I don't feel too much pressure. It's nice to know the car's got the pace, we've got the pace, so we need to keep doing what we're doing, keep our heads down and keep it clean.
The stage in Parys was once again set for the age-old fight between Ford and Toyota. In older brother Lance, Woolridge has a pretty good ally.
We clawed back a lot of points in Desert, which was really nice. I think we still got a bit of a way to get into the top 3, which is sort of our goal for the year after what happened in the first 2 races.
Over in the red corner, Henk Ladekan had every intention to return to his winning ways.
It's nice having some competition, or it's keeping the championship exciting, which is nice for everybody watching. But yeah, we have to use this weekend to try and catch back up. We have 2 opportunities to score points here, so I think it's important to have a clean weekend.
As always, Toyota fielded a formidable squad featuring the likes of Dakar legend Janelle de Villiers and Guy Botterill.
Ford's a little bit ahead of us after the desert race, but there's still 4 races to go, so all to play for.
The championship's really tight. Everyone is having a full go, and with this double header, it's all on the line basically this weekend.
After 3 rounds of the 2023 title fight, these were the standings. Gareth Woolridge enjoyed a bit of breathing space at the top ahead of 3 chasing Toyotas in the form of Ladekan, de Villiers and Botterill, with Lance Woolridge completing the Toyota and Ford sandwich. The scene was set, and it was time to go racing. Qualifying was a mad sprint on wide open gravel roads, so the pace was hot. So hot, in fact, that the winner managed to complete the 18-kilometer route in a time of just 10 minutes and 14 seconds. That's an average speed of around 110 kilometers per hour, and that on a dirt road. The man setting the blistering pace? None other than Henk Ladekan. Together with Brett Cummings reading the notes, the TGRSA crew were on a planet of their own, beating the second-place qualifiers by a full 48 seconds. It was good news for Toyota, though, as the crew in second was youngster Sahud Variawa and Donnie Stassen. The Joburg-based drivers just turned 18, and this was only his 2nd ever national rally raid, so he's the one to watch in the near future. The gap to the 3rd fastest qualifier was a further 4 seconds. People often ask who the quickest NWM Ford Castrol driver is between the 2 Woolridge brothers, and the qualifying result here in Parys served as a very good indication. The answer? Well, there was nothing in it, as both set the exact same time, down to the second. This was lining up to be a great race, as the next crew, consisting of Janelle de Villiers and Dennis Murphy, qualified only a further 2 seconds back with the 5th fastest time. Times were close between all the Class T1 Plus monsters, so TGRSA's Guy Botterill and stand-in navigator Zahir Bodania would have been pretty pleased with their 6th fastest time. Botterill's regular navvy was forced to miss the event, but the experienced Bodania was happy to slide into his seat. The popular Horn brothers, Johan and Vanna, were next in their Team Hilux Rally Raid Hilux, narrowly beating the Redline Motorsport Revo of former champion Chris Visser and Blicky Sventer. By narrowly, we mean 1 single second. And 1 second was also all that separated Visser and the crew who set the 9th fastest time. That time belonged to Class T1 Plus debutants for Sheehan brother Battis Blickno in their brand new Team Hilux Rally Raid Hilux, with Rally Raid stalwart Gary Berthold and Henry Cohen rounding out the top 10 in Class T1 Plus. And here are the numbers. It was only 18 kilometers, but Henk Ladekan enjoyed a 48-second lead at the top of the standings. Teammates Variawa and Stassen were next, followed by the Woolridges, who set identical times in their Fords, with Janelle de Villiers just a couple of seconds back in 5th. And all of that was only the qualifying part of the Parys 400, with the full race still to come. Before we get going, a little food for thought. Normally, it is a disadvantage to start a race from first on the road, as you are responsible for finding the correct route and leaving a set of tracks for others to follow. But this year, the Parys event moved to an earlier time slot in the season, meaning it was still winter in the Free State, and that means dust. So much so that Henk Ladekan chose to start the race from first on the road. In fact, the qualifying results pretty much decided the starting order, as everyone was scared of getting stuck in dust. At exactly 9:30, the flag was waved to start the Parys 400, when Henk Ladekan dropped the clutch from behind the wheel of the Toyota Gazoo Racing SA Hilux. At the front, we know that Ladekan was the one to set the pace ahead of a string of fellow Toyotas and the rival Fords. We'll tell you how that battle at the front of the field ended up in a moment. So perhaps this is the perfect opportunity to tell the story of the rest of the Class T1 Plus field. Unfortunately, the former multiple Class A champions, the Parys 400, didn't end well for the King Price Extreme crew of Lance Strathui and Adrian Ritz, who were forced to call it a day in their Century Racing CR6. It seemed like Parys was not kind at all to drivers called Lance, as NWM Ford Castrol team driver and rally hopeful Lance Woolridge and co-driver Kenny Gilbert were also forced to throw in the towel when a mechanical issue halted their progress. The Horn brothers from Malalan were not without their own set of problems. At least they managed to find a way around them and reached the end, albeit in 11th position. Redline Motorsport continues to attract quality international competitors to our South African shores, and the Parys 400 was no different. The Dutch and Belgian combination of Stefan Kamans and Arjan van Thiel managed to record a maiden finish in their brand new Revo T1 Plus. A great result, but not as great as the one recorded by their teammates in an identical car. Middle East-based lady driver Aliyah Kolak is just 19 years old, but together with Rian Kraling, they managed to reach the end in their new Revo. And speaking of new, the Witbank-based businessmen and brothers Fushi and Bantus Blickno also debuted their brand new Team Hilux Rally Raid T1 Plus Hilux here in Parys. And it's been one heck of a debut. A roll during the Thursday shakedown session, followed by good qualifying and an 8th place finish on Friday. One got the feeling that there was more to come from these two. They were beaten to the line by the man with the best name in the business, Boris Prinsloo. Sausage and his co-driver Andre Vermeulen are making progress during every outing, and it's just a matter of time until they will start to bother the scorers. They finished the race in 7th position. Ahead of Prinsloo, there was a great tussle going on between rally stalwarts Chris Visser and Blikkie Sventer, and another legendary drive in the name of Gary Berthold and Henry Cohn. Between Visser and Berthold, they probably have more than 60 years worth of rally raid racing under their belts, and on this occasion it once again showed. Visser tried his hardest in the Redline Motorsport Revo, but it was Berthold who got the upper hand by claiming 5th place. We now had 5 crews still in the hunt, but only 4 more positions remaining. The crews at the top had everything to lose, but also everything to gain. Ladekan and Cummings fully capitalized on their road position and showed the competition a clean pair of heels despite opening the road. They hardly put a foot wrong all day, and despite losing 3 minutes at a tricky water crossing, recorded an otherwise clean run to seal a valuable win in round 4, bringing their championship back on track. At the same time, teammates and defending champions Janelle de Villiers and Dennis Murphy followed Ladekan and Cummins home in a second Toyota DKR Hilux T1 Plus. While Guy Bottrell, racing with stand-in navigator Zahir Bodania, finished in 3rd place. A clean sweep for the boys in red. Woolridge and Dreyer were hampered by a rear CV problem on the opening loop, which turned into 2-wheel drive during the second loop. This dropped them down to 7th overall, but the men from Maritzburg fought back gamely to seal 4th place on the day. And by now it was probably easy to work out. One of the top runners were missing. And what a tragedy for youngster Sahud Variawa and Dani Stassen. The TGRSA crew were running as high as second overall, but they fell foul to the same water crossing that nearly foiled Larkin and Cummings a little earlier. Variawa spent the rest of the afternoon waiting for assistance to extricate the stricken Hilux. When all was said and done, these were the final standings of the Parys 400. A great performance by Henk Ladekan, who managed to squeeze in a narrow 25-second victory over teammates De Villiers and Murphy. Bottrell rounded out a Toyota top 3, with Gareth Woolridge the first, Ford in fourth, just ahead of Berthold, who rounded out the top 5. And finally, the moment they've all been waiting for. Time to celebrate victory from the podium for SA's best racers. And on this day, no one was better than Henk Ladekan and Brett Cummings.
But yeah, no, it's a lot better. It's nice to be back and having clean loops and clean runs, or not exactly clean, but at least getting to the end without any major issues or getting stuck in the bush. So yeah, no, good to be back.
That was all for round 4 of the 2023 SA Rally Raid Championship. A tough race indeed, but the good news for fans was that they didn't have to wait long for their next dose of adrenaline, as round 5 was scheduled for the very next day. Still in Parys, but a new route on a new day for a new race. All the action of the first Parys 400 was brought to you by Ford, Toyota and Pirelli. And we'll see you next week for the second Parys 400 in as many weeks.